Inside was a circular room, the walls covered with distorted mirrors, each reflecting a different version of me, some older, some younger, some not at all, living. All moved their lips, but I heard no sound, until the beat translate into words. We will synchronize. One of us will have to leave. The mirror in the middle of the room suddenly swelled up like water, and from there stepped out another me, but his eyes were emotionless, his face calm as if he knew no fear. At the same time, my heartbeat and his became one, so strong that the floor shook. I understood that if I let him put his hand on my chest, the replacement would be complete. The problem is, I started listen. I can hear this heartbeat even with my ears covered, and I'm not sure which one is my real heart anymore. The beat still echoed in every fiber of my being, so strong that every vein felt like it was about to burst. The one with my face slowed down, his eyes filled with nothing but absolute stillness. With every step he took, the beat grew louder, not just in this circular room but across the city outside. I heard glass breaking, the overpass shaking, the railroad tracks bending, all in unison. He raised his hand. I backed away, but my back hit the cold mirror behind me. The mirror trembled, the surface became liquid like water, and I saw inside. Another city, identical but colorless buildings, a blank white sky, and statuesque figures. I realized, if I was dragged into it, I would disappear from my city, and he would step out to replace me. The beat suddenly changed rhythm. No longer fits my heart. Now a torter let my heart beat with it. That feeling was like someone was squeezing my heart in their hands. I remember the words of the woman with half a face covered with tears. To escape, you have to create a rhythm. But too much of a rhythm, and the city will break. There is only one way, self-disruption. I bit my tongue, the pain shooting to my brain. At the same time, I took a deep breath, then held it. My heart started to skip a beat, pounding fast and chaotically. The entire circular room shook violently. Mirrors cracked, their reflections distorted and shattered. The other guy faltered, his hand that was touching my chest twitched as if electrocuted. The beat is beating no longer even, the floors of the buildings outside began to distort into jumbled blocks, the streets curved like wet paper. Sirens, screams, and broken glass mixed into chaos. The city was collapsing. I dashed toward the metal door, but behind me, he screamed, the first time I heard it. Tone him. Not like me, but like hundreds of voices overlapping. Can't be off forever. We'll meet again, in the next cycle. I pushed the door open, white light flooded in, engulfing me. When I opened my eyes, I was standing in a square. But here not me city. The sky was red as wet blood, the buildings were identical but stuck together as if pressed. People walked, but there was no sound. I put my hand on my chest, my heart was still beating, but there was no longer that rhythm. Instead, from somewhere far away, rang out a new beat. I get it. I escaped, but this city is a composite version of two old cities, and I'm at the beginning of another cycle. That new rhythm has just begun. Compiler. I dashed down a narrow alley, my footsteps echoing off the brick walls like a half-beat slow echo. My footsteps, and the beat other. I looked back. No one. But the walls on both sides moved little by little, as if the bricks were sliding away, changing the structure of the alley. I realized, I wasn't running on a fixed path, but rather inside a build that is constantly being updated. Then I saw. At first I thought it was a tall, thin man in a long coat, his face mostly covered by a white porcelain mask. But as he got closer, I realized that the mask was dynamic. The cracks in his mask split, slid, and reshaped every few seconds, as if his face couldn't hold itself together. In his hand was an object that looked like a painting frame, but inside was no painting. To be a miniature city, with buildings, streets, signs, and I could see clearly, he was lifting each piece of it, putting it together in an invisible order. Every time he puts a piece in place, out there a real part of the city also changed immediately. He didn't look at me. But I heard a voice, not coming from the mouth, but from the surrounding air. Everything has to fit. I felt myself being pulled toward the frame in his hand. The closer I got, the more I saw the roads inside it, just like the places I just passed. And in one corner of the frame, I saw a miniature version of myself, running. Just then, he placed a new piece of sugar next to it, and I realized that if he finished, I will have no way out. I was forced to do something reckless, jump straight into the frame. The whole city shattered into 1,000 pieces of light, then darkness. I woke up in a strange place, and the first thing I saw, 3 other frames, many times larger, suspended in the air, and each frame contains a different city. Do you think the pair is a human being, or a part of the frequency taking physical form? And why does he need so many cities? Please leave a comment, because I'm afraid we haven't seen the full extent of this game yet. Neighboring city. When I stood up, the wind wasn't blowing from a certain direction, it seemed run through the void, carrying with it tiny bright dust like ashes of half-burnt paper. 3 giant frames hang suspended, each containing a separate city. A frame with ash-gray sky, houses rising and falling as if breathing. Another frame is a dazzling neon sign, but the signs change letters constantly as if being typed from afar. The other one was pitch black, with only a few scattered lights like eyes looking out. I don't know why, but my footsteps were drawn towards the neon frame. To the touch, the glass softened like a film of water, and I sank into it. I fell into a damp street, filled with steam rising from manhole covers. The noise here is not like a real city, it's like Kia distorted music, all sounds are slightly off frequency. Passers-by passed me by, but every face was alike. Not exactly, but like slightly edited copies, eyes 1 millimeter off, hair dyed differently, but smiles are completely identical. When I tried to ask for directions, they didn't respond, just tilted their heads in unison, at the same angle, like a pre-programmed reflex. I noticed the signs on the roads were a stringify, not language, but a form of frequency encoded in images. These signs led me to a building that looked like an old cinema, but the outdoor screen wasn't showing movies, it was showing at 3 minutes ago, was walking down this street. A voice rang out from behind. Don't let them perfect your copy. I turned around and saw a woman in a long coat, but half her face was blurred like a television signal gone black. She said she was from my city too, and was dragged here when the transplant started testing. Parallel. According to her, this city next door is a prototype of a more perfect version, where every human being is make a copy, edit and replace gradually in the original world. If a copy is completed, it will return to the real city and replace the original, without anyone noticing. She said, "You still have time, until you hear the sound beat off yourself." And just then, I heard it, a beat that matched my own, but not coming from my chest, but from somewhere in this city, echoing. If I stay, that beat will find me. But if I go back, will I be replaced in some way? Heartbeat. At first, I thought it was just the echo from some industrial machine underground. But the more I listened, the more I realized, it matches my heartbeat perfectly, beat by beat, not a second off. Not only that, every time I changed my steps or took a deep breath, the other rhythm changed as well, as if something was listening. I am from the other side. The woman with half her face covered with haze said, "If you can still hear it, the path is still open. But when that beat passes you, everything changes forever." I asked what change meant, but she just turned her head, pulled up her hood, and blended into the identical crowd on the street. They walked in perfect sync, and for the first time I realized, my heartbeat is slowly matching their footsteps. I run. Both the heartbeat and the beat increased in speed. The echo is now no longer just in the ears, it trunge in the sidewalk, the walls, the air. Every time that beat rang out, the street lights flashed, the neon signs changed letters, and shadows appeared on the shop windows, mismatched with real people passing by. I dashed into a narrow alley. At the end of the alley was a metal door with a double helix symbol on it. I had seen it on signs before. When touched, the door emits a strong beat to the point where I almost fell. But it wasn't just once, it repeated, blending with my heartbeat, then rhythm. I looked around, people, no, every version of everyone, all stood motionless. Hundreds of them, mixed together among the pile of stacked architecture. The ground is now half brick, half cloud, half street, half suspended river. Starting frequency sweep. Every time it passes by someone, one of two versions of them disappear, not melting, not exploding, but as if erased from the frame. I feel it coming towards me. Up above, I up there also looked down, my face filled with determination, or despair, I wasn't sure. When the scan frequency came, I realized it not randomly selected. It chooses version that fits its cycle, something I never understood, but maybe, it was deciding which city is the original? We touched hands just as the frequency swept through. For a moment, I saw our memories blend together, rainy days, streets, faces, deaths, similar but never quite the same. Then, white light. I opened my eyes. Only one city left. No clouds, no floating copies. But everything not entirely true, the streets are a little off, the buildings have windows in places they never should be, and the people I meet, sometimes call me by my first name. Another name. I don't know if I am the original me or not. But I know one thing, frequency is still here. It was smaller, deeper, and seemed to be counting down. You think, has this cycle ended or is a new one just beginning? Comment and let me know, because there might be second cycle. Cycle 2, counting. At first, I thought I would get used to this silence. But then, I realized it wasn't completely silent. In the silence, counting. Very small, as if from afar, 1, 2, 3. I tried asking people around, but they just looked at me strangely, or smiled and walked away. In the crowd, I saw a face, just like mine. But instead of looking at me, the person pressed his ear against the wall, as if listening. As I approached, he whispered. We missed 7 counts. Before I could ask, he disappeared, not into thin air, but as if he had entered into a crack in the wall, and the crack closed immediately. I began to hear more clearly. The count was irregular, sometimes fast, sometimes slow, and every time it uttered a number, a corner of the city changed. The window moves to another position. The staircase spiraled one more time. The lamp post suddenly grew out in the middle of the road. That night, I heard the number 12. And when the number 12 rang out, an old building by the river lit up all its windows, despite being abandoned for more than 40 years. Inside, I saw people lined up in long rows, all facing the glass doors, countdown with frequency. Now I understand, cycle 2 not just choose who will survive. It recruit. You think, what is the count calling us to? And is it counting down or up? Comment and let me know, because I think, first point of the second cycle coming soon. New starting point. The countdown stops at number 12. But instead of repeating from the beginning, this time it changed to something I had never heard before, a low, lingering note, like someone was holding their breath to the very end. The whole city stood still. The car on the road is not moving. The pedestrian stopped mid-step. The bird in the sky hovered, as if suspended in mid-air. In front of me, the wall of an abandoned warehouse began to crack in a spiral. From the crack, a dull blue light radiated, a light that made my shadow on the ground begin to reverse shift me every move. I don't know why, but I walked in. Inside, the only sound was the continuing count, but not in a human voice. It sounded like multiple frequency layers overlap, creating the feeling that thousands of mouths are whispering in your ear at the same time. I realized, every number that came out, the surrounding space changes shape. The wall becomes a hallway. The ceiling turned into the night sky. The concrete floor opens up into an endless path. On that road, I saw other people. They stood in a row, wearing white masks, each holding something in their hands. Some are clocks, some are tape recorders, some just hold a rock. One of them turned to me and said, "You're late. New starting point has started since last count." I asked, "Where does this point lead?" The man didn't reply, just pointed towards the end of the road, where a giant gate was open, and behind it was another city, but only pieced together from the scattered pieces of where I used to live. As I took another step, the countdown rang out point 1. And I realized. Cycle 2 just ended. Real start. You think, the city behind that gate, where is it? Combined city. I walked through the gate. The air here is different. It's not wind, but a thin pressure, like you're in a giant room but every wall breathes. This city is not intact. It's a huge patch. A classic cobblestone street sandwiched between two glass skyscrapers. An abandoned church located next to a subway station. An 80s neon sign hangs, but isn't attached to any buildings. Each block of architecture was assembled as if someone had taken pieces from dozens of other cities and thrown them here without regard for logic. But the deeper I go, the more I see it is not random. These pieces form a frequency map, and I only realized it when I stood on a street corner, looking from above. Suddenly, everything around me moves. A building disappears, replaced by a night market. The road I had just passed was swallowed by a newly opened, deep alley. And at the end of the alley, there was a person. A girl wearing a long coat, hair covering half her face. She did not come closer, just raised her hand to her lips to signal silent, then pointed to an old sign on the wall. Where the frequencies match, the path opens. The countdown rang out again, but this time from not far away. It echoes from inside my head. At the same time, all the street lights in the city turned on simultaneously, but they did not emit normal light, but rather circular light, scanning the buildings, looking for something. I understand, they're looking for me. You think you merging this city? Is it the human, or is it the frequency that is building it to do something? I had to decide, destroy this tower now, or continue following the map to the end. But if I destroyed it, what would happen to the altered frequencies inside me? You think I should end it all here, or continue to the end to see what happens to the city? Leave a comment, because next episode might beta end, or the real beginning. Episode 9.7, Epiphone. 6:47 a.m. The city looked like it had just gone through a storm. No wind, no rain, everything was dead silent, but I could hear the heartbeat of every building. After leaving the Tower of Creation, I no longer needed the map. Point 7, it pulled me away. With each step, the vibrations in the bones grew stronger, as if approaching the center of a giant heart buried beneath the city. The road leads me down around wholly in the middle of an abandoned lot, where the old square used to be before it was leveled. There was nothing there, but a giant dusty crater, and in the middle, a circle of black glass, about 10 meters wide, flat, reflecting the distorted sky above. I step into the middle of the circle. Immediately, everything exploded in my head. Not the sound of bombs, but a frequency beyond my hearing. I see it. Silver waves shot out from my body, hit the glass surface, and spread across the city. In that moment, I saw all 6 previous points glow, then join together, forming one perfect spiral. The city is no longer a city. It is Agent Circuit. Then I saw them. Every face, every distorted shape, from the silent factory, from the Glassford tunnel, from the burning theater, all eyes on me, but not to attack. They waited. The voice rang out one last time, low and deep as if coming from the core of the earth. Frequency complete. You are the epicenter. Emit, or destroy. I understand, if I broadcast just once, the city will synchronize completely to this frequency. No one will be the same. No place will be the same. Everything will be transformed into something new, not sure if it's human anymore. But if I cancel, not only the frequency, but I myself will disappear. I looked into the dark glass below me, reflecting not my face, Bhuta perfect city, no cracks, no noise, no people, just buildings as quiet as statues. I have to choose. You think I should frequency to see what the new city will be like, Orkenslal and end it all now? Leave a comment, because if there's a next episode, it will be City After Frequency, or Absolute Nothingness. Episode 10, City After Frequency. I have chosen release. The moment his finger touched the glass, a shattering sound came out, not from his ears but from his mind. Every air molecule. The city vibrated like a giant guitar string that had just been strummed, and then silent. I opened my eyes. The sun was still high in the sky, but the light was no longer golden. It turned turquoise, and when I looked at it, I saw layers of frequency waves undulating like silk ribbons in the air. The passers-by stood still. They were not dead. They, awaiting orders. Each person is like a small beacon, emitting a faint light from their eyes, synchronized with the pulse of the city. The buildings cracked, but did not collapse. The cracks glowed from within, revealing metal veins running along the concrete frame. I realized, the city had skin change. In the distance, the Tower of Emanation was now twice as tall, as if it had been pulled straight from the ground. The top of the tower emitted a slow pulse, and I could hear it clearly. Every beat of it in the bones. I walked, realizing my feet no longer made any sound. The street was soft as velvet, and each step left a circular wave spread across the ground, like a calm lake. Everyone turned their heads towards me when the wave hit, but no one spoke. I could no longer hear the sound of cars, the wind, or any familiar sounds. Only frequency, the only thing that exists. Then I saw something that made my heart sink. In the sky, suspended among the blue clouds, ice another city identical to the city below me, but everything was upside down, like a reflection in a mirror. From that city, I saw dark shadows go against gravity, walking towards the edge of the cloud, as if looking for a way come into my world. I realized, broadcasting frequencies doesn't end things. It just opens them up. Doran, from now on, this city does not belong to us alone. A voice rang out behind him, not from anything living, but from the frequency itself. Cycle 2 begins. Episode 11, The Intersection of Two Cities. Above, the upside-down city continued to descend, slowly but surely, as if the gravity of the two worlds was pulling them together. Each time it came closer, frequency in air changes, from deep like the sound of a deep-sea drum, to high-pitched like the sound of broken glass. I stood in the middle of the square and saw two shadows, one below, one reflected above, and both are moving out of sync. The shadows from the city and the clouds reached the edge of the sky, and what I didn't expect was that when they set foot on their sky, they fell straight into the street below like through water. But when they hit the ground, their bodies shattered into fragments of light, then reassembled into people I once knew. Some of the faces made my heart clench. They were neighbors, co-workers, and even people long gone. I heard the voice of me up there echoing down. We are not two. We are one, separated. Then, everything shook violently. Buildings in both cities began to overlap into each other, imperfectly, creating tears in space, crevices where light and dark mingle, swallowing everything they touch. I ran, but realized every step was bring yourself closer to the city in the clouds, as if the gravity had reversed. The hand of I up there reached down, but as I neared it, I saw his eyes clearly, not human eyes. Frequency spike. Every object begins slip through reality, lampposts growing through walls, roads twisted like ribbons, rivers winding in the sky. I understand, these are no longer two separate cities. This is the city is merging, and when the process is over, there will be no more concept of my world or his world. Amidst the rumbling, a final sentence rang out from all directions. When the city is complete, only frequency will decide who survives. Episode 12, Final Cycle. When the two cities completely touched, I thought there would be an explosion. But there wasn't. Instead, absolute silence, a thick, heavy silence, as if swallowing all sounds. In that silence, I still heard frequency. It is no longer sound transmitted through the ear, but blood-borne, seeping into every muscle, every thought. I run. But when I turned back to the entrance, I realized the tunnel was twice as long as when I entered. The cracks in the wall curved, joining together into intersecting circles, just like on the map. Each circle vibrated, creating a deep, reverberating thump, and, from somewhere, someone whispered. 5-point, ready. I got out of the bunker when the clock read 3:03 a.m. The map now shows 4 bright spots, and the lines between them are no longer faint lines, they are bright road, like veins running throughout the city. If frequency can make a drop of water stand still and lengthen the tunnel, I'm starting to worry, it will soon do more than that. Do you think I should continue to come, point 5, or find a way to cut off one of these circuits before the city is completely transformed? Leave a comment, because I fear, next time, the frequency will not only affect space, but will affect itself. Body-mind. Episode 7.5, The Silent Factory. 3:47 a.m. The map vibrated in my pocket, as if trying to tear the fabric. A 5th point of light appeared, abandoned factory on the eastern edge of the city. On the map, the bright veins connecting the previous 4 points converge here, as if all the blood is rushing to heart. I walked up, it was cold but sweat was running down my back. The tall rusty iron gate of the factory was open, not because of the wind, but as if someone had waiting. Inside, the air was as thick as standing water. Each footstep echoed in dozens of sounds, then distorted. The timbre of the echoes no longer resembled human voices, but deep, thick, slower, like something is imitating. I went deep into the main workshop. All the machines were rotten, but on the floor, dust does not move. Everything stood still. Not a speck of dust fell, not a spider moved. The whole space seemed to be frozen. Freeze in a moment, kept until now. Then I saw them. 3 people. Or, at least, used to be people. Their bodies were twisted and stretched in unnatural places, like a stretched photograph on a computer screen. Their skin was taut and thin, pulsing to an invisible frequency. No mouths, no eyes, just ripples that ran around their heads, like the surface of water when the base was low. I realized frequency engraved into their flesh. I backed away, but one of them, or it, turned its head towards me. Not in a normal way. Its neck twisted 270 degrees, no cracking sound, just a lengthen. That buzzing sound began seed into my skull. The vision blurred, and in his head, an image appeared, a futuristic city, no longer human, only distorted shapes vibrating to the frequency, moving like a mute choir. I was pulled back to reality when the phone in my pocket vibrated. The map popped up, and all the lights now flash at the same time. Those creatures did not move of their own accord, they awaiting orders. And when the command is issued from the central frequency, the whole city will change, not in parts, but at once. I tried to run out of the factory, but in the doorway I saw something I couldn't explain. My shadow is 3 steps ahead of me. It turned back to look at me, mouth moving to say something, but no sound came out. I was out. Or so I thought. But the ringing was still in my ears, and when I touched my neck, I felt ripples under the skin. Do you think I should find the center point to end it all, or am I too late and frequency has started inside me? Leave a comment, because maybe, next episode, I won't be me anymore. Episode 8.6, The Transmitter Tower. 5:12 a.m. It was not yet light, but the northern horizon was flashing with light. Not of the sun. The sixth bright spot on the map, tower development, flashing so intensely that the phone screen was hot. I stood in the clearing and looked at it from a distance, a towering mass of black metal, like the exposed spine of a giant body buried beneath the city. There were no lights, no wires, but the air vibrated from it as if heat on asphalt. I moved closer. The more I walked, the heavier my head became. The ringing in my ears was gone, eaten the bone. With each step, my knees tightened, and my eyes began to see thin, hair-like waves, gliding through the air, cutting across the streets. When I reached the foot of the tower, I realized, it does not stand still. The entire metal mass was rotating slowly, very slowly, emitting a deep rumble so deep that my heart began to beat in time with it. There was a door at the bottom of the tower, unlocked, but completely dark inside. I stepped inside and immediately, loss of gravity. There was no feeling of standing on the ground, no sound of footsteps. Every sound was sucked away. This was not normal silence, this was the complete absence of reality. In the darkness, a voice rang out, not through my ears, but directly in my head. You have taken the frequency within yourself. Now you no longer listen, but emit. I raised my hand to my neck, the ripples under the skin throbbed, like a separate heartbeat. I suddenly understood, I am the antenna. Light suddenly opened up. I was in the middle of a vast space, hundreds of, no, thousands of distorted human figures like in the silent factory, arranged in a circle around the center of the tower. They all vibrated to the same rhythm. In the center, a transparent sphere was suspended, inside of which was something like entire city map, but the roads twist, curve, and change constantly as if redesigning themselves. I heard the voice again. 6 points are open. When the 7th point is marked, the city will be complete. I don't know what complete means, but when I looked up, I saw that the sky above the tower had been distorted, the houses, the street lights, the whole sky were gone. Curve in a spiral. I pulled out my phone, the map was glowing. The 7th point wasn't there yet, but I had a feeling it was there. Right in me. I backed away, but from a distance, at the other end of the bridge, I saw a man standing motionless. It was unclear whether they were men or women, only that they were wearing long coats, and their heads were tilted slightly as if they were listening to something. When I blinked, they were gone. I returned to the apartment in a state of turmoil. The map now had 2 bright blue dots, the station and the bridge. And from both points, sound waves began to spread out, intersecting in an area, which was 3rd point, the cinema was on fire. I don't know what will happen if all 7 points are activated. But one thing is for sure, I am no longer the only one tuning into this frequency. And if that's true, then the next question is, where are they leading me, or am I leading them to me? Do you think I should continue to point 3, or find a way to break this circle before it is complete? Leave a comment, because I started to feel like, every time I went to a new spot, they got closer. Episode 5.3, Theater on Fire. 4:02 a.m. I sat motionless in front of the map screen on my phone. The 2 green dots of light of the station and the bridge had connected, forming a curved wave like a taut rope. In the middle of them, is a flashing red dot, Astor Cinema, which burned down 12 years ago in a fire whose cause has never been determined. I don't know why I grabbed my coat and walked out. It was like my body knew the way before I could think. The Astor Cinema stands tall in the middle of an abandoned street. The facade is blackened, the neon sign, Astor, is half gone, only TR remains, as if someone tried to erase the most important part. The main door was sealed with rusty chains, but the side door was ajar. Inside, the smell of ash and burnt wood was still strong, as if the fire had happened only yesterday. I shined my flashlight, saw rows of rotted chairs, the vaulted ceiling still stained with black sparks. I was walking down the aisle when the phone made a new sound, not the steady buzz like before, but a melody. It played slowly, but each note was accompanied by a flash of an image in my mind. Not the image of the theater, but my memory. I remember when I was 9 years old, standing in a dark room, the projector light sweeping across my face. My mother sat beside me, smiling. I remember, but then the next note came, and that smile turned into a completely different face, pale, eyeless. I was startled, my heart pounding. The sound continued, pulling me back to other memories. This time it was the night I was 16, running through the alley behind school. I remember laughing, but suddenly, the laughter became distorted, turning into a strangled scream. All the memories I had were burned right before my eyes, leaving behind ashes and a cold void. At the end of the theater, the large screen had burned out, but on the black wall, bright circles began to appear, exactly like the sound wave circles on the map. They don't stand still, Beato the tune on my phone. I stepped closer. When I touched the wall, my skin burned like hot coals, and a flood of images flooded my mind, people I had never met, places I had never been, but they were so familiar it was terrifying. Then I saw them. In the flickering light, the silhouettes of people sitting in the theater, motionless, turned towards the burned-out screen. All of them had no eyes. And at the same time, the phone displayed the text. Triple point activation, memory is no longer your own. I backed away, trying to run outside, but the side door was now closed. In the darkness, there were footsteps approaching in unison, and the frequency of the sound changed to a beat that matched my heartbeat. When I got out, the map on my phone was no longer just 3 bright spots. Between the points, the sound waves now turned red, as if they were heating up, and about to explode. The next flashing point is named Glassford Tunnel, a place that has been blocked since 1978 for a reason no one dares to mention. I began to understand, frequency was not just finding location. It was overwrite me memory, point by point. And if all 7 points are activated, I will no longer remember who I am. Do you think I should learn about this tunnel first, or try to jam the signal now? Because if I were one step slower, I might no longer be me when I continue telling this story. Episode 6.4, Glassford Tunnel. 2:11 a.m. The phone map jumped to a new bright spot, deep underground, Glassford Tunnel. It is a tunnel that has been blocked for 2 decades, once a subway line but abandoned after an unexplained collapse. I walked down the stairs into the cellar, past rusted barriers. The air inside was so cold and dry that my nose hurt. The flashlight on my phone caught the old brick walls, where tiny cracks stretched like spiderwebs. As I go deeper, frequency started vibrating in my pocket. It was no longer a buzz, it was rumble, deep and thick, like the sound coming from a giant overstretched electrical cable. The ground beneath my feet shook slightly, not because of the train, but as if the whole city is breathing through this chest. I shined the light on the ceiling of the tunnel. Drops of water fell, but they didn't fall straight down, they stand still in mid-air, trembling to the rhythm of the sound waves. I tried to touch a drop with my hand. It felt cold, but immediately my ears buzzed and an image flashed in my mind, Glassford Street 50 years ago, bustling with people, and in the middle of the crowd, was the man in the long coat I had seen on the bridge. They stood still, heads turned to look straight at me, even though I was only looking through the memory of the frequency. I stepped back, but the rumble grew louder and louder, to the point where the bricks in the wall began to crack and dust fell everywhere. Further on, at the end of the tunnel, I saw Aimtal Door Old. On it, someone had drawn the same distorted sound wave symbol I had seen on the bridge. I was about to get closer when all the phone lights went out. In the darkness, the rhythm changes, no longer regular, but beats like a human heart. And from the 4 walls, the bricks started moving, protruding as if the pit was contracting, wanting to swallow me. I turned on the light. Everything disappeared. I think I need to go outside and get some air. But as I opened the apartment door, I saw something lying on the carpet, a white envelope. No sender name. Inside was a blurry photo of me, standing in a room I have never been to. On the wall behind me, there was a symbol painted, 3 concentric circles, connected by a straight line. The corner of the photo has a series of numbers printed on it, 3:17. Now I realize, it was just as the sun was starting to rise, and it was also when I heard the knock on the door last night. Over the next 3 days, the hum changed. It was no longer steady like a heartbeat, but began to morph into a staccato pattern, like Morse code. I wrote it down, compared it, and realized, it was the coordinates of a location. When I looked on the map, I saw that the coordinates were right in the city. An abandoned subway station has been sealed off since 1984 after an unexplained accident. It is 2:41 a.m. now. I was standing at the entrance to the train station, the iron doors locked with rusty chains. The phone in my hand started vibrating violently. The screen displayed the exact 3 concentric circles I saw in the photo. Below, from deep within the dark tunnel, a humming sound began to sound, and this time, I was sure, it was calling my name. Do you think I should step down there, or turn around and leave before it's too late? If it were you, would you dare follow this frequency underground? Please leave a reply, because if I go, I might need someone to know why I'm not coming back. Episode 3, Frequency Map. I stood in front of the entrance to the abandoned train station, the circles on the phone screen still rotating slowly, as if to hypnotize me. But I didn't step down. Not because I was afraid, but because I felt it is not the time. I went back to the apartment, closed all the windows, drew the curtains, and put the phone on the table. The blue light was still blinking, as if waiting for me to touch it. I tried opening the Maps app, and almost immediately, the phone automatically drew a straight line from the abandoned train station to other points in the city. Not 1. Not 2. But is 7 points. All are abandoned or prohibited buildings. A psychiatric hospital closed since 1976. An unfinished overpass in the middle of the river. A burnt-out cinema from the 50s. An apartment complex abandoned halfway through construction. A church was sealed. A warehouse is not listed on public maps. And, a completely blank location on the map, with only coordinates but no name. When I zoomed in on the map, I realized the points weren't randomly arranged. They are connected together to form a giant circle covering most of the downtown area. The abandoned train station is score 1, and in the middle of that circle is where I live. The phone vibrated violently, the screen turned black, showing only the text. Starting from the periphery. I chose the nearest location besides the train station, the old mental hospital. That night, I walked there. The area was fenced off, but a section of the fence had been broken, just enough for me to squeeze through. The air inside was much colder than outside, and the smell of mold and old medicine filled my lungs. The humming returned, clearer this time, coming from the second floor. I went up the stairs and into the long hallway. All the doors were locked, except for one at the end of the hallway, which was ajar. Inside, on the peeling white wall, there is a painting, 3 concentric circles painted black, but in the middle is a small, old, faded mirror. I moved closer, and saw my reflection, not stand still. It whispered something. I leaned closer, and heard every word. Point 2. Will be opened when the frequency is enough. I ran away from the hospital, but when I returned to the apartment, the map had changed. The hospital point on the map lit up in dark blue, while the other points started flashing. At 3:17 a.m., my phone turned on speaker, playing a series of sounds, each sound indicating a different location on the map. I realized, if I kept activating each point, the circle would be completed. But I still don't know, when that circle is complete, what will happen. Now, those 7 abandoned spots are like waiting for me to come. And I know, I won't be able to sleep peacefully if I miss them. The question is, should we continue, or scrap the whole thing before it's too late? What do you think I should do? If it were you, would you go to each location and complete the circle, or delete this map immediately? Leave a comment, because I have a feeling, once the circle closes, the whole city will hear this frequency. Episode 4.2. 3:18 a.m. My phone still vibrated slightly, the screen only showed 2 words, continue. Left with no other choice, I put on my coat, stuffed my phone in my pocket, and stepped outside. Point Tun, the map, is the unfinished overpass in the middle of the river, where the project was abandoned nearly 20 years ago due to undisclosed technical problems. I stood at the foot of the bridge, looking up at the rusty red iron frames that protruded like the ribs of a giant creature. No one lives around here, no cars, no lights. Just the sound of the river water gently splashing under the bridge. I climbed the rusty maintenance stairs, each step creaking as I stepped. The wind up there was so cold my teeth chattered. As I approached the middle of the bridge, where the road suddenly cuts off, turning into a gap facing the river, the phone started buzzing, but this time, it was irregular. That sound was like someone trying to catch a signal, but was interrupted by another sound, the sound of a footstep right behind me. I turned back. No one. But the left railing shook slightly. I walked on, until I stood at the edge of the bridge, in front of a dark space. The buzzing stopped. The phone lit up, displaying a strange series of symbols, intersecting curves, like distorted sound waves. Then from the space in front of me, I heard a very small sound, like a whisper, but drawn out, as if the whole sentence had been stretched 10 times. I tried to listen, and caught a few words. No, this frequency is even deeper. The wind suddenly changed direction, cold, and I realized, the surface of the river below began to ripple in a circle identical to the circle on the map. Circles of water spread, then disappeared, then reappeared, as if waiting for someone to respond. The phone vibrated so hard that it almost fell out of my hand. The screen showed. Point 2 activated, preparing to connect. Silent. Not just any silence, but the kind of silence that makes your eardrums hurt, because it swallows up all the frequencies around you. In a split second, I realized I had just climbed up to be with it, in a confined space with no way out. As it walked towards me, the concrete floor didn't shake, but the elevator behind me started shaking violently, as if being pulled up, or pulled apart. The ladder behind me shook so hard that the welds made a high-pitched screeching sound. I turned around, and my heart skipped a beat. The steps below are disappear. Not falling or breaking, but so long as if eaten away by something invisible. Step by step, erased from this world, starting from the bottom and working its way up to me. My body was tense. There was no way down. In front, it still walking slowly, each step as if measuring time. The blue halo in its chest pulsated, and I realized each pulse of light was a heart rate. Not his, but mine. I stepped back, my feet hitting the dust on the floor, but the dust did not stick to my shoes. It slid away, flew up, and disappeared into thin air as if it had never been there. This space did not hold anything for long. The buzzing returned, but this time not from its chest, but from inside my head. The sound echoed back into my mind, shaking my memory like someone was turning the pages of a memory book. For a moment, I saw flashes of images, other abandoned buildings I had explored, but in each photo I remembered, in some dark corner it was standing there before, watching me. A chill ran down my spine. I wanted to scream, but my throat felt constricted. I took another step back, and my back hit empty space. The ladder was gone all the way to the step I had just been on. It stopped, standing a few meters away from me. The blue light in its chest glowed, filling the room with a cold light. In that light, I saw, on the silo walls around us, hundreds of handprints. Some hands were as small as children's, some were abnormally large, all facing inward, toward it. I realized, this wasn't the first time it had had guests. And I wouldn't be the last. One horse sprinklering out. The last step behind me disappeared. I faltered, but before I fell, it reached out. Its long, black fingers touched my forehead. All gone. No more silos, no more factories, no more blue lights. Just absolute darkness, and a distant, steady, echoing sound like a heartbeat, or the sound of a giant machine starting up. Then I opened my eyes. I was standing in front of Millfield's rusty iron gates, in broad daylight. Phone in hand with spectrum analyzer application still open, display perfect concentric circles. And in the middle, there was a green dot of light, approaching. I stood frozen in front of Millfield's rusty iron gate. The daytime air was hazy as if it had just rained, but the road I had taken to get here was empty, not a single tire mark. I turned back to look at the factory. The chimneys still stood, silent, no sign of life. But when I raised my camera, through the lens, I saw it. Standing right at the first silo door, motionless. The green halo in its chest rose and fell slowly, as if it was waiting. I lowered the camera. The silo door was empty. Looked up again, nothing. When I reviewed the photos that evening, almost all of them were blurry, distorted, and grainy. All, except one. In that picture, I am standing in front of a rusty gate. And right behind me, was a tall, dark figure with a blue halo pressing against the back of my neck. I deleted that photo. Or at least, I think it was deleted. Because this morning, when I opened my phone, there it was. Not in my photo library, but as my lock screen wallpaper. I don't remember putting it there. And the last thing that gives me the chills, is the blue light in the photo. It's brighter than yesterday. Do you think it followed me out, or did I never leave that place? If it were you, would you return to Millfield for answers? Leave your comments, because I think I'll need a companion. Episode 2, Frequency in the City. Do you remember that picture? The photo I'd deleted, but it became my lock screen wallpaper. The next morning, when I opened my eyes, I saw that the phone was still on the table, but the screen was lit up even though I hadn't touched it. The blue halo in the photo was still pulsing. I touched it to turn it off, but as soon as my finger touched the screen, the phone vibrated, then emitted a buzzing sound. Not from the speaker. Not from the app. But from inside, it was as if the phone battery was humming at a strange frequency. All day long, I couldn't escape the sound. At first, it was as faint as the sound of electricity leaking through the walls, but by noon, I realized I was starting to synchronize my heartbeat with it. I tried the TV, the radio, my laptop, but everything was filled with static. The images and sounds were warped and distorted. For a moment, the white lines of static ran across the screen, and I saw a tall, thin figure standing in the corner of the room, looking straight at me. It was just a fleeting image, but I knew it wasn't an illusion. That night, I fell asleep on the sofa, phone still in hand. Around 2 a.m., I woke up with a start. There was no buzzing. Nothing. The room was so quiet that my eardrums hurt. I stood up and walked to the window. From the 9th floor, I looked down at the deserted street. And then, in the glass, I saw reflective mine. But the reflection wasn't still, it was turning its head to look behind me. I turned back, empty. But when I looked back at the mirror, behind the reflection was a blue light, approaching. Hello. I am your storyteller tonight. If you are listening to my voice, you probably want to be lulled to sleep, but there are sleeps that do not lead to dreams, but to a place of no return. Before we get started, please like the video and subscribe to the channel, so I know you're still here. And, tell me, where are you listening from, and what time is it? Because when this story ends, time will no longer be an issue. Millfield Power Station had been dead for 17 years when I first walked through its rusty iron gates. Dead, but not silent. That should have been my first warning. I have legal permission from the landlord, an investment company that buys up dying properties, leaves them to rot, and waits for the right opportunity. My insurance is good, my equipment double-checked. I'm used to this, Dozens of abandoned industrial parks across the Northeast have left their mark on me. I collect the sights, sounds, and sensations of decay to feed my urban exploration blog. But Millfield promises to be different. It lies on the banks of the Merrimack River, like a giant prehistoric beast, motionless yet exuding some kind of hidden power. The October sky was leaden, and its chimneys seemed to pierce the clouds, giving the impression that they had once swallowed the sky. I entered the turbine hall, a church of rust and darkness. The skylights had long since broken, letting in weak rays of light, illuminating millions of dust motes that slowly rotated as if time had thickened here. Each of my footsteps echoed through the vast space, then distorted back like the echo of someone following. The air was heavy, not in the unpleasant industrial dusty way, but like something was pressing down on my chest. Then I saw them, 3 giant coal silos, each 30 meters high, connected by conveyor belts and rusted maintenance corridors. The door of the first silo was wide open, the steel frame warped as if someone had broken it with their bare hands. I turned on the headlights and walked in. The space inside was like a giant throat, the concrete walls curving up and disappearing into thick darkness, swallowing my light. The air was damp, old, and smelled, not just of dust, but of something that had lived, and died, in here. I knew my LED was powerful enough to shine at least 15 meters, but the darkness here refused to retreat, as if it had mass, a creature pressing against my light. And then I felt it. At first it was just a faint vibration under my feet, so faint I thought I was imagining it. But as I stood still, it grew stronger. The handrails on the side of the catwalk vibrated at a strange frequency, penetrating my bones. Outside it was completely quiet, no wind, no machines running. But somewhere, something was making the entire structure breathe. I took out my phone and opened the Audio Spectrum Analyzer app. The screen immediately showed a waveform, eerily perfect. Concentric circles radiated from an invisible point, each spaced precisely as if created by machine. But it wasn't waves on the water, it was a sound, coming from above, deep in the darkness I couldn't see. I saved the data, then started climbing. The maintenance ladder vibrated under my every step. The hum became more audible, not just audible, but felt. It radiated through my ribs, making my teeth ache. At about 30 feet, I stopped and looked at the screen. The circles were getting closer, the frequency was higher. When I reached 15 meters, the handrail started to warm up. Not from body heat or sunlight, but from the heat of the metal as the electric current passed through it. I jerked my hand back, almost losing my balance. In my peripheral vision, I saw metal, glowing faintly, like the glow of dying coal. But when I shined a light directly on it, it was normal. I should have gotten off. I should have packed up, left the place, written a harmless blog post about acoustic resonance in abandoned architecture. But I didn't go down. Because up above, something is calling me. I held on to the handrail and continued climbing. The buzzing was no longer a sound, it was a pressure pressing against my skull, making my eyes vibrate in their sockets. My heart was beating out of rhythm, in sync with the trembling around me. At 25 meters, the darkness seemed to thicken. The headlights were still on, but the light was sucked away, leaving only a halo of light in front of me. I had the feeling that I was no longer climbing a ladder, but crawling down the throat of something huge and alive. A cold wind suddenly blew down from above, but, no, it wasn't wind. It wasn't the smell of air, it was like an invisible liquid flowing around my skin, seeping into every pore, making me shiver. About 30 meters, I stopped. The phone screen vibrated in my hand, not because my hand was shaking, but because the entire metal mass of the elevator was vibrating like a giant guitar string. The circles on the app were no longer regular, they were distorted, shaking, as if something had just sensed my presence. A faint noise came from above, not machinery, not steel structure, but footstep. Slow, heavy, and too steady to be human. I forced my eyes to look up. In the thick darkness, a faint blue glow, small but distinct, hung somewhere at the top of the silo. It didn't move, but as the hum increased, the glow pulsated as if breathing. I don't know why I kept going, but my hands kept pulling me up the steps. There was some invisible pull, as if I stopped, it would know, and it would come down to find me. At about 45 meters, my phone died. The battery was still full, but the screen was black. My headlight was also dimming, the light being pushed back as if someone was blocking it with a hand. And then I reached the mouth of the silo. The space opened up, wide and empty. The concrete floor was covered in a thick layer of dust, but in the middle was a perfect circle. The dust swept away as if something had been there and moved in a circle hundreds of times. The green glow was clearer now, it wasn't suspended in the air anymore. It was contained within a mass of something. A tall, thin figure, standing motionless in the center of the circle, its entire body shrouded in a blackness so dense that light couldn't cling to it. Only its chest emitted that pulsating green light, a light that hummed and vibrated the air. It had no eyes, but I knew it was looking straight at me. And then, the buzzing stops.